So if you've been carrying someone who leaves you smaller every time you meet, the demon is not in them. The demon is in the belief that you must keep the door open. You don't need an exorcist. You need a decision. Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever felt exhausted after talking to a specific person? Not because of what they said, but because of something under what they said. A kind of invisible weight that sits in your chest long after they leave the room. You can't name it, you can't prove it, but you feel it, like a smell you can't locate. Most people call that a difficult personality. Some call it toxic. But what if I told you that researchers in behavioral psychology, along with philosophers like Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche, described a pattern of human behavior so precise, so hollow at its core, so predictably destructive, that the only accurate word for it from the past 1,000 years is demonic? Not a red monster with horns. Not a Hollywood possession. I mean a real, walking, breathing human being who feeds on your attention, your guilt, your time, and your peace, without ever feeling a single drop of remorse themselves. And the scariest part, they often don't even know they are doing it. That's how deep the pattern goes. In the next 18 minutes, you will learn 5 signs that someone in your life might be one of these people. You will learn why your kindness has been their favorite weapon, and you will learn why walking away is not cruelty. It's algebra. By the end, you won't see difficult people the same way again. You'll see a map. Let's begin. Here is the first sign. A real demon in human form cannot stand to see you grow, not because they hate success. That would be too simple. They hate growth because your growth is a mirror that shows them their own emptiness, and emptiness, when reflected, becomes pain. Let me give you a long, practical example. Imagine you come home excited. You just got a small promotion at work. Nothing huge, maybe a title change and a small raise. But you worked hard for it. You feel proud. You walk into the kitchen where this person is sitting. You say, "I got the promotion." Now watch what happens next. A normal person might say, "That's great. I'm happy for you." A difficult person might say nothing or change the subject to their own day. But a demon, they will do something much more precise. They will pause for 2 seconds, just long enough for you to feel a tiny drop in temperature. Then they will say, "That's nice, but don't forget how stressed you were last month. Are you sure you can handle the extra pressure? You know how you get when you're overwhelmed." Do you see what happened? They didn't argue. They didn't yell. They planted. They planted a seed of doubt right next to your joy. And here is the psychological mechanism. Research on social undermining shows that this kind of comment, disguised as concern, is actually more damaging than open criticism. Because open criticism you can fight, but a concerned doubt makes you question yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A demon wants your thoughts to match their own gray, exhausted color. They cannot rise to meet you, so they pull you down to their basement. Here is a second example, even smaller. You decide to start going to the gym. You're excited. You tell them. They say, "Oh, that's good. Just don't overdo it. Remember last time you tried to get fit and quit after 2 weeks?" That's not advice. That's a prediction disguised as memory. They are writing your future failure in advance so that when it happens, or even if it doesn't, they were right. So here is your application. Next time you share good news, watch the face of the person you're telling. Do they pause before responding? Does their first sentence contain a "but," a "just," a "careful," or a "remember when"? That pause is not thoughtfulness. That pause is the demon calculating the most efficient way to dim your light. And that is sign number 1. Now the second sign is even more hidden, and it takes most people years to name it. This person keeps an invisible ledger. Every favor, every kind word, every minute of your time, every compliment you gave them, they record it as a debt you owe them. But here is the trick. They never show you the ledger. They only mention it when you try to say no. I want you to think about a specific person in your life right now. Ask yourself honestly, when they do something nice for you, do you feel grateful, or do you feel warned? Because a demon's kindness always comes with a future price tag. Their generosity is not a gift. It is a loan with compound interest. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Love is not a debt to be repaid, but a gift to be passed on." A demon does the opposite. They give you a glass of water today, and next week, when you can't drive them to the airport, they say, "After everything I've done for you?" That everything is the glass of water. But in their mind, that glass of water has grown into a lake. Let me give you a very common real-life situation. Let's say your co-worker covers your shift one time. You say thank you. You buy them coffee. The debt should be closed. But a month later, you ask them to cover a small task for you. They say, "I already covered for you once. You owe me." Wait, didn't you buy them coffee? Didn't you say thank you 3 times? It doesn't matter. In their ledger, the debt never closes. Because a closed debt means you are free. And they don't want you free. They want you slightly obligated forever. Carl Jung called this the shadow projection. The demon cannot see their own neediness, their own hunger for control, so they project it onto you. In their mind, you are the one who is always taking, even when you are the one giving. Even when the math says otherwise, their feelings rewrite the numbers. Here is a deeper layer. This ledger is not just about favors, it is about presence. Have you ever had someone say, "I listened to you complain about your job for an hour last week, so you owe me an hour of your time today"? That is not friendship. That is a transaction, and transactions are not love. So how do you test this? Do a small experiment. Next time they ask for help, say no, calmly, kindly, without a long explanation. Say, "I can't do that right now, but I hope you find a way." A normal person might be disappointed for a moment, but they will accept it. A demon will become cold, sarcastic, or suddenly remind you of every sacrifice they ever made, going back months or even years. That reaction is the ledger opening. And that is sign number 2. Here is the third sign. And this one is so quiet that most people miss it for years. Some people miss it for decades. A real demon does not always scream. They do not always attack. Sometimes they disappear. But not the normal kind of disappearing. They use silence as a weapon. Let me explain the difference. In healthy relationships, if someone is upset, they say something like, "I need some space right now. Let's talk later." That is a boundary. It has a door. You know when they will come back, or at least that they will come back. A demon, however, goes silent without telling you why. And during that silence, your mind will fill in the blanks. You will replay every conversation from the last 3 days. You will wonder what you did wrong. You will apologize for things you never did. You will send a second text, then a third, then a sad emoji. This is the Zeigarnik effect in action. Your brain hates open loops. An unfinished conversation feels like an itch you cannot scratch. The demon knows this instinctively. They don't study psychology. They just know that when they pull away, you lean in. And the more you lean, the more power they have. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But the demon wants you to forget that. They want you to believe that their silence is an event you must fix, as if their quiet is a fire alarm you need to turn off. Here is a practical example you might recognize. You text them a normal question. "Hey, are we still meeting at 7? They read it immediately. You see the read receipt. Then nothing. 1 hour, 3 hours, the next day. Then finally, 28 hours later they say, "Sorry, been busy." No explanation, no warmth, no "how are you?" Just a flat grey sentence. And somehow you feel relief. You feel relief that they responded at all. Do you see what just happened? They trained you to accept crumbs and call it a meal. Here is the nervous system truth. When someone uses silence as punishment, your body enters a state of ambiguous loss. You don't know if they are angry, tired, done with you, or just distracted. That ambiguity keeps your cortisol high and your peace low, and while you are spinning, they are resting. Because the silence was never pain for them. It was a tool. Here is your frame for this sign. Silence is not a mystery to solve. It is a test, and you pass the test by not running after them. You do not send a second text. You do not apologize. You do not ask, "Did I do something wrong?" You let the silence be empty. You fill that space with your own breath, your own plans, your own life. Because when you chase their quiet, you are dancing with a ghost, and ghosts never hold you back. They only make you cold. The fourth sign will hurt to hear, but you need it, because this is the one that keeps you stuck the longest. This person has a story about your life, a complete narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and in that story, you are never the hero. You are either the fool, the villain, or the broken thing they are trying to fix. And here is the trap. The more you try to correct their story, the more you look like the villain they already decided you are. Let me make this very practical. Imagine you have an argument about household chores. You say calmly, "I feel like I do most of the cleaning. Can we talk about a better balance?" A normal person says, "Okay, let's make a schedule. I didn't realize you felt that way." A difficult person might get defensive and say, "That's not true." But a demon, they will say something much more damaging. They will say, "There you go again. You always think you're the only one who works hard. You're so sensitive. This is why I can't talk to you." Do you see the shift? The topic was chores. Real, measurable, observable chores. They changed the topic to your character. They moved the conversation from what happened to who you are. This is called moral labeling in social psychology. They give you a negative label: sensitive, selfish, dramatic, controlling, too much, and then they argue with the label instead of the issue. Once you are officially the sensitive one, every complaint you ever make becomes proof of your sensitivity, not proof of their behavior. It's a closed loop. You cannot win. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "The most dangerous people are those who project their own evil onto others." The demon cannot look at their own flaws, their own laziness, their own avoidance, their own selfishness. So they paint you as the broken one. And the more you defend yourself, the more you look guilty. "I'm not sensitive," you say. And they smile inside, because now you are arguing about your personality instead of the dirty dishes. Here is a deeper example from close relationships. Let's say you try to set a small boundary. You say, "Please don't call me after 10 p.m. unless it's an emergency." A normal person says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Got it." A demon says, "Wow, you're so controlling. Everything has to be your way. I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of nothing." Again, the topic was a simple request about time. They turned it into an indictment of your entire character. And now you feel bad. You start to wonder, am I controlling? No, you asked for one thing. That is not control. That is a line. But they needed you to erase that line, so they burned the map. So here is your application. Next time they label you, do not argue. Do not say, "I'm not sensitive." Do not list evidence. Do not explain. Instead, say nothing. Or say, That's an interesting story you're telling about me. Then stop talking. Walk away if you can. You are not required to live inside their novel. You have your own book to write. And in your book, you are not the villain. You are the one who finally stopped auditioning for their play. The fifth sign is the most subtle, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It will start appearing everywhere. This person rarely, if ever, says your name. Wait, listen carefully. I don't mean they forget your name. I mean they actively avoid using it. They say, "Hey, you, that person," or nothing at all. They start conversations without greeting you. They end conversations without acknowledging you. Why? Because a name is a summoning. A name says, "I see you as a separate person with your own thoughts, your own needs, your own right to say no." And a demon cannot afford to see you as separate. Separate people have boundaries. Separate people can leave. Separate people are harder to control. Research in interpersonal communication and even early childhood development shows that using someone's name creates psychological safety and recognition. It activates a part of the brain that says, "I am seen." A demon avoids this because safety is their enemy. They need you slightly confused, slightly off balance, slightly unsure if you matter. A person who is unsure if they matter will work harder to prove that they do. Here is a practical example you can test today. Think back over the last 10 conversations you had with this person. Did they ever start with your name? For example, "Hey Sarah, can you help me with something?" Or did they just appear and begin talking? "Can you help me with something?" No name, no greeting, no hello. Just a demand dressed as a question. It feels like being handed a piece of paper without a smile. Now think about texts or emails. Do they ever write your name at the beginning or end? Or do they just send commands? "Come here." "Call me." "What time?" Without your name, you are not a person. You are a function, a tool, a pair of hands. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. A demon is a one-person tribe. And they want to absorb you into their world, where your name is not needed, because you are not fully real to them. You are an extension of their needs, and extensions do not need names. A hammer does not need a name, it just needs to hit." Here is your test. In your next conversation with this person, use their name twice. Say, "Hey John, how was your day?" Then later say, "John, I wanted to ask you something." Watch their reaction carefully. A normal person will soften. They might smile slightly. They might say your name back. A demon will look uncomfortable, or they will ignore the name entirely and answer the question without acknowledging the recognition. They might even get irritated. That small discomfort, that tiny flash of annoyance, is the demon's mask slipping, because you just reminded them that you are a person, and persons are harder to control than shadows. So let me bring this together. You have just walked through 5 signs. Let me name them one more time, slowly. The mirror of no reflection, where your joy is met with doubt. The emotional ledger, where every favor becomes a future debt. The punishing silence, where absence is used as a weapon. The story where you are always the villain, where your complaints become proof of your brokenness. And the absence of your name, where you are not seen as a separate person. Now here is the deeper truth that most videos will never tell you, and this is where the philosophy lives. These signs are not actually about evil people out there. They are about a single question that most of us are too afraid to ask ourselves. Why do I stay? Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most people walk around saying, "I have bad luck with people," or "I always attract difficult personalities." But Jung is saying something harder. He is saying that you stay because something in you recognizes something in them, not because you are weak, but because you may have been trained long ago to confuse love with exhaustion, to confuse loyalty with self-loss. Let me say that again. If you grew up in a house where love was given conditionally, where you had to earn warmth through good behavior, silence, or performance, then a demon feels familiar, not comfortable, familiar. And the mind prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. That is not a moral failure. That is neurobiology. Marcus Aurelius would say, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." He meant that your peace does not depend on their behavior changing. It depends on your attention changing. Right now, you are watching them like a weather forecast, hoping the storm will pass. But you are not a meteorologist. You are a human being with 2 feet. You can walk inside. Here is the final reframe. You are not a detective. You do not need to prove they are a demon. You do not need a confession. You do not need them to admit what they are doing. You only need to ask one question, and you need to ask it honestly. After I spend time with this person, do I feel expanded or reduced? That is not philosophy. That is biology. Your nervous system knows the truth before your mind does. Your shoulders know. Your stomach knows. The tiredness you feel after they leave, that is not a mystery. That is data. So stop collecting evidence for a trial that will never happen. You are not going to convict them. You are going to choose yourself. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It is arithmetic. You cannot pour from a cup that someone else keeps cracking. So here is what you do next. And I need you to hear this clearly because your mind will try to make it complicated. Do not confront them. Confrontation gives them a stage. It gives them a chance to use every tool we just discussed. The labeling, the ledger, the silence. You do not owe them an explanation for your peace. Instead, take one small step this week. Just one. Reduce your availability by 10%. 10% less time. 10% less explaining. 10% less hoping they will change. You are not cutting them off forever. You are just creating a small crack of light. And light, once it enters, tends to grow. Then take another step the week after. 15%. Then 20%. Not out of revenge, out of gravity. You are simply returning to your own center. And if you want to understand why your kindness has been trapped for so long, why you attract these patterns, why you feel guilty when you try to leave, then I have made a video called The Psychology of the People Pleaser's Cage. It is not about blaming yourself. It is not about calling you weak. It is about rewiring the deep old belief that you must earn love by shrinking. That belief was not born in you. It was put there, and anything that was put there can be removed. Click that video on your screen right now. Not because you need more information. You already have enough information. You have 5 signs. You have a mirror. You have a map. Click it because you deserve to feel what it is like to breathe in a room where no one is secretly feeding on you, where no one is keeping a ledger, where silence is just silence, not a weapon. You have carried enough, longer than you should have. Put the weight down. The door is already open. You just forgot you had hands to push it.